Welcome to Arise Entertainment 360. I'm Shannon Lanier.
And I'm Katia King, live from New York. We're here with your 360 look at entertainment, arts, and culture.
That's right. And we have to start off today by saying that, you know what? It's not only Wear Red for Women's Day, which is a big thing, it's also Groundhog's Day. So happy Groundhog's Day.
Hey!
Yes.
Okay, so you have to tell me what Groundhog Day means, because I watched the movie, but I didn't actually know it was a thing.
Yeah, it is really a thing. You know what? I'll let Lupita and Nyong'o tell you a little bit first on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, and then we'll break it down a little more. Take a look.
I'm good.
Which of the two major events this weekend are you more excited about, Groundhog's Day or the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Neither one of them?
Is Groundhog's Day real? I mean...
What do you mean, is it real?
I mean, it's that Bill Murray movie.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, but it's based on a real thing that we do here.
Really?
Oh, settle in, because we gotta talk. Groundhog's Day is...
Yeah.
I know how ridiculous this is gonna sound.
I've been here for a while, and I'm surprised that this movie is real.
So you remember in the movie where a man in a top hat grabs a groundhog, this rodent basically, and pulls it out of the ground and then holds it up for everybody.
Yeah.
And then if the groundhog sees its shadow, I think it gets we have 6 more weeks of winter. It's there to predict the weather, but it's almost always wrong. In fact, it's wrong more than it's actually right. And yet we keep doing it over and over and over again.
So someone somewhere in America has this thing that they actually do, and people care?
Not only do they do it in Gobbler's Knob, there's another one in Staten Island. There's a low-rent version called Staten Island Chuck. It's really the saddest thing ever, because this groundhog's like, oh, I couldn't even be the groundhog, I gotta be Chuck. But
and the thing has to see its shadow?
If it sees its shadow, 6 more weeks of winter. If it doesn't see its shadow...
But how do we know it's seen its shadow?
We have no idea. We have no idea. The guy in the hat tells us whether
and
it's
they say Africans are superstitious.
So you see, you're not alone. Lupita and Nyong'o also had the same concerns.
You know, I'm glad to see that it's not extraordinary to not understand what Groundhog Day means.
Yeah.
But you mentioned wear red for women, right? So I know that people generally wear red in America to bring attention to heart disease and the fact that it's one of the #1 killers for women.
Yeah.
Are you still going to have to explain this Groundhog Day thing for me?
Okay.
I still don't understand.
Well, according to the legend, as they were talking about, Punxsutawney Phil, who was up in Philadelphia.
What's Punxsutawney?
Yeah, it's just a place in the middle of nowhere, and their only claim to fame is they have this groundhog that they call Phil there.
A real groundhog?
A real live, large rodent type thing. And if he comes out and sees his shadow, that means he's reporting that we have 6 more weeks of winter.
That sounds entirely made up. I don't believe you.
If he doesn't see it, then spring's right around the corner. But
what? No.
I have 2 groundhogs in my backyard. I didn't even see them come out today, so I don't know how legit this whole groundhog thing is.
Yeah, I feel like he's lying to me.
No, it's a real thing.
Can you tweet me and tell me if this is real? I don't believe him.
Lupita was like, and you guys call African women superstitious. But apparently,
you better
a lot
go,
of people
girl.
believe in it. Are you superstitious?
Oh, very.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you walk over a person's feet, does that mean that they won't be able to have a baby?
No. If you walk over a person, if someone walks over my feet, it means that I'm going to have a baby with their attributes.
Oh, no.
So don't walk over my feet.
Or if you do it, you have to walk back over to cancel it, right?
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Take the baby away.
It's too confusing.
Now, let's move on to the subject of politics.
Yes.
But it's still quite hilarious. It is no secret that the Congressional Black Caucus didn't care much for President Donald Trump's State of the Union address. Now, however, a new image shows that 3 of them were scrolling through their iPhones during the Tuesday speech, and at least 1 congresswoman was playing Candy Crush.
That is hilarious. Clearly, they were not interested in what he had to say.
Were any of us?
Exactly, right? Well, this was the first State of the Union address given by President Donald Trump and his second joint session address to Congress. Well, the congresswomen who were playing on their phones, they have been identified as Representative Brenda Lawrence, and then the other 2 congresswomen, you see them right there on the right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's Brenda playing Candy Crush
that is
right there.
definitely Candy Crush.
Yeah, and then the other 2 congress people who are Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman and Representative Joyce Betty. So,
whoa,
yeah.
That just goes, I mean, you're only on your phone in front of another person when they're speaking if you really don't care what they're saying.
Yeah, and they're so far back, they're thinking no one could see them.
No,
one
I'm
could
pretty
tell.
sure they do not care if he sees or not.
They're probably trying to make a statement and say, this is how much we care.
If you really didn't care, you would have your phone like here,
hidden
you'd
down
be
at
trying
the
to
bottom,
hide it.
yeah.
You'd be like, yep, I'm paying attention. She's like,
I don't care. But you know, I get what they're doing and I get what they're saying, but at some point I'm like, well, we paying y'all to work. Shouldn't y'all be there listening so you can deflect whatever he's saying and, you know, go against what he's saying, and you're not paying attention, you don't know what he's saying.
good point, well made. I'm not paying you, so I don't care either. Joking.
Very true.
Now, fans who were hoping for an NSYNC reunion or surprise Janet Jackson appearance during the Super Bowl are out of luck.
Oh,
Sorry
is
to
so
burst
sad.
your bubble.
All right, well, according to Justin, he's not planning on having any special guests at all. He wants to have the stage to himself in Minneapolis on Sunday. And of course, I mean, he could be lying just to surprise us and keep the suspense going, but maybe not. What are you expecting from this performance?
You know, I think that he's definitely going to rock the crowd.
Yeah.
Rock your body.
Hey!
But, I mean, he'd do a lot better if he brought Janet out.
Oh my
I
gosh,
think
yes.
that because a lot of people, including her father, have basically said that she is going to be part of it, he's trying to make us believe that she won't, so that when she does come out, it's still a surprise.
Ooh.
Remember I told you.
I like it. Okay, so what about NSYNC then?
They ain't coming.
Oh, that's too many to pay. Too
One
many
of
people to
them's
pay.
fat now.
Oh, dang, the shade.
It's Friday.
The shade. Friday shade.
Friday
okay.
Shady Day. I mean, come on.
God.
Nah,
Yeah, that's
really.
a lot of folks to pay.
There are literally only 2 that still look the same.
Oh, well, if he just paid Janet, we would be happy. So let her come, let her
Bring
do a
her
set,
out.
and have a
Make
great
it
show.
right,
Yeah,
okay?
there you go.
know what you did.
Oh.
You know what you did,
You know
JT.
what you
You better
did.
make it right, my girl Janet.
Make
And
it right.
We'll be right back.
That's right.
With more Rise Entertainment 360.
You can see shade. Welcome back to Arise360. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement has been at the forefront of the fight for equality, police transparency, and justice for murdered African Americans at the hands of cops.
Absolutely right. Joining us now is the co-founder of that movement and the author of the new book, When They Call You a Terrorist, Black Lives Matter memoir. Patrisse Cullors, welcome to Arise360.
Thanks for having me. I
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate all the work you have done for the Black Lives Matter movement and for the injustices that we've been facing in this country.
Indeed.
So
now, your
continue
book
to work.
talks a lot about resilience and strength and survival.
Yes.
Tell us about the book and why you decided to write it.
It's a coming of age story. It really is me trying to situate the conversation about anti-Black racism and talking to people about why this movement would even be created. I wanted people to understand that as a child, I witnessed state violence on a regular basis. I witnessed policing and over-incarceration, and it's what led in a lot of ways to the building of Black Lives Matter.
Yes,
Wow.
indeed.
Okay, so for those people that are out there and they actually believe that the Black Lives Matter movement is full of terrorists, anti-cop people, anti-white people, what do you say to those people?
I say that you're wrong. I say that if you take a moment to just look at the people who are actually leading Black Lives Matter, who are at the forefront of Black Lives Matter, we've always called for peace. We've always called for justice, especially for our family members, especially for the ones who've been killed by law enforcement.
Now, we are in America, of course, so everyone here knows what the Black Lives Matter movement is, but this is an international channel, so not everybody might be familiar with it. Take me through why you started it and what it's about.
Well, we started it when George Zimmerman was acquitted of Trayvon Martin's murder. Trayvon Martin was a young boy from Sanford, Florida, who was in his own neighborhood, went to the store, got some Skittles and iced tea, and next thing you know, he's dead by a neighborhood watchman named George Zimmerman. That year was a whole trial from 2012 to 2013. I thought that George Zimmerman was going to get manslaughter at least. But he didn't. He got to go home that night. And I couldn't live with the thought of that being the period to the story. And so I went on social media to kind of look at what we were going to do, what was the call to action. And my good friend Alicia Garza wrote a love note to Black people, and she closed it with Black Lives Matter, and I put a hashtag on it. And when I put the hashtag on it, That was a first moment where I was like, this is something that could be bigger than just the phrase. And we talked it out, her and I, and decided that we wanted to do something with it. And then Opal Tometi, a few days later, daughter of Nigerian immigrants, joined Black Lives Matter. And that's the story. The three of us started it. And we're now a global movement. We have over 40 chapters across the globe in the United States, United Kingdom, and in Canada.
Well, and a lot of people, you mentioned the hashtag, a lot of people know you from the hashtag, but you guys do so much more. Talk to us about some of the other things you do to incite change.
Well, I've been a part of the movement for a long time. I'm 34 years old. I joined it when I was 16, 17 years old. I joined a civil rights organization. I was tired of just learning about racism and poverty. I wanted to do something about it. And so I joined the Bus Riders Union when I was 17 and a half.
Wow.
And I was there as a civil rights organization in Los Angeles fighting for better transit, environmental justice. And then I started my own organization before Black Lives Matter called Dignity and Power Now, where we fight for the rights of people who've been incarcerated inside LA County jails.
Wow. Now, I have to ask you about, because it's something that we see, you mentioned the hashtag that we see on social media, but then you also see hashtags like All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter.
Yes.
What do you think about the people that have sort of almost hijacked the Black Lives Matter movement and made it their own?
I think it's unfortunate because when you say all lives matter, of course they do.
Right.
Of course they do. What we're saying is Black Lives Matter too.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter isn't about exclusion, it's about focus. And Blue Lives Matter is clearly a defensive, really police and law enforcement who are trying to demonize and minimize the Black Lives Matter movement by trying to put their, cause, and really, they're one of the most protected classes. And I think it's unfortunate when we see Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah, you make that very apparent in the book. So what do you hope readers will take away from your book?
I want readers to invest in Black authors. There's so many amazing Black authors. It's Black authors that helped me get through my many years of witnessing state violence. I read Octavia Butler, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde. But I also want readers to take action. Join something, join an organization.
Definitely, that's very true. And you have been in many organizations. I was looking through your bio, I was like, well, she's been just about in every organization. like you said, you started when you were just a teen, but you never stopped. You continued, you sit on board, you do many activist issues. What is, besides Black Lives Matter, what's the other #1 issue that you're fighting for?
Maternal health. Black women, especially in the United States, have the highest maternal mortality and morbidity numbers. We're 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth and after that first year after. It's because of racism. It's because of neglect. It's because of lack of care. And it's because from the moment we're born, our bodies are neglected by the health system. And so by the time we carry a child, it's actually really difficult on our bodies. And when we're in labor, in hospitals in particular, the lack of care that happens over and over again. I've met with so many families who lost their wives, their sisters, their cousins to maternal mortality. It's a big issue of mine. I'm a senior fellow at Moms Rising. I've been working on the issue for the last 1.5 years.
So what can a layperson like myself or Shannon do to assist the movement?
If you are interested in anything, whether it be reproductive justice or racial justice, women's rights, you can Google. It's easy. Look up an organization that does that work. If you're interested in focusing on the law, you can look up, things like the ACLU or organizations in New York that are local that are really fighting to change policy and law. There's so many avenues. Organizations like Color of Change. I mean, there's so many organizations that people can show up and maybe you can't physically go to a meeting, but maybe you could donate, right? And I think that's important any way that you can to support some of the people that are doing the hardest work in this country to make American democracy true.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to go out there and march, or I don't want to put my voice out there and be,
it's not the only way you can show up.
Like you said, you can give money and no one even has to know about it. You can still support the cause.
Right. Under positions of anonymity.
Exactly.
So what is the hope for this book? What do you hope that it's going to achieve?
I hope that it gets everywhere. I mean, we've published already in the U.S. We just published in the U.K. on the 25th. The German press has picked it up, so it's published in Germany. And I hope that it debunks a lot of the myths of Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And I also hope that it gives people an entryway into what Black life has looked like in this country, especially for poor Black people, and how we can move into action.
Yeah, well, it seems like a lot of action is still needed. And do you think there's a greater need now for Black Lives Matter than when Trayvon was first shot?
Absolutely, absolutely, especially when we live under a government that has called it a law and order government, a government that has called Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, and a government that's trying to drag us back to the old days of the war on drugs and really, you know, Jim Crow era.
Speaking of the government that has called Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization, you have to show us your shirt.
Yeah.
You
It's
have
this
to.
camera right
I had
here.
to pick this up on camera. Absolutely amazing.
that.
When they call you a daughter, author, survivor, activist, terrorist, and the ends of all those words come together to make terrorist, that is amazing. Is this something you designed yourself?
I didn't. It was actually one of our team members that designed it, and we were trying to, outside of the book, how do we have a larger conversation? And this is the age of the T-shirt with words on it, so we thought that this was an interesting idea, and I love it. I think it's amazing.
Well, we think the shirt's amazing. Black Lives Matter is amazing.
You pre-ordered 20, please. I need to hand them out, give them to my family members.
Right, well, we'll take them home.
Gorgeous,
Thank you
gorgeous.
so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Continued
you.
success with
We
all
have
your
to
work.
also talk about where the book is available.
Yes.
For those of our viewers that want to pick it up.
Okay, so it's on Amazon, but it's also in independent bookstores across New York. It's also at Barnes & Noble, and you can pick it up Barnes & Noble inside Barnes & Noble, or you can go on bn.com.
That
All right,
is a
so
gorgeous
make sure
book
you
cover
pick
as
it
well.
up. Yes.
Wow, we.
When they call you a terrorist, pick it up now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you,
I really
Continued
appreciate it.
success. All right.
We will be right back with more Rise Entertainment 360. Welcome back to Arise Entertainment 360. Now, as we know, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. So whether you're in love, looking for love, or couldn't care less about love,
Right.
we've got some help for you.
That's right. Joining us with tips on loving in the 21st century is relationship expert Dr. Danielle Forshee. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello. So
Hi.
we're talking love, love, love.
It's in the air.
Is it? Is it? Where's mine?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I don't have any.
I love you.
Oh, thank you. Now, you are a doctor of psychology as well as a licensed therapist, and you are, no one is more qualified to talk about love than you. So, what would you say in the lead up to Valentine's Day we should be doing or looking to do if we're looking for love?
Well, if you're looking for love, it's important to know what you're looking for in general. Like, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for a hookup, or are you actually looking for a relationship? Because that's going to really dictate how you proceed.
Okay,
Very true.
for those that are looking for relationships, it seems harder these days for people to find. I know so many single people that are like, I just can't find a good man or a good woman. What's the problem? What's going on? Is it themselves? Is it should they look in the mirror? Is it
Well, you know, sometimes yes, sometimes no. So we all need a good dose of self-actualization, which is when we take the mirror and we kind of look at ourselves to see, you know, is it us more or less that's contributing to the major issue here? But really, I think it's a big problem in socialization, because really we have a lot of people that now are meeting online, which is very difficult to really get to know somebody, because it's text messaging and it's really a lack of being able to see their facial expressions and hear the tone of their voice. There's a lot about the way in which we speak, the tone of our voice, our body language, that's really, really effective in really good communication. But also with the online dating, there's a lot of hyper stimulation and hyper attention going on. So, you know, you get one person you see, and then you find them, and then you swipe, and then you swipe, and then like it's this total overstimulation. There's always something else or somebody else better. So it's this mindset that we're trained to be in at this point. It's different than it was when we're meeting people organically. So it's much more complicated now.
So you go with a more old-fashioned meetup then.
That's the better way.
It's the best way.
That's the better way.
Face, right?
Yeah, and you actually get to know the person as opposed to just, you know, looking at a picture and being like, great.
A picture from 20 years ago.
Right? I feel like also with these dating apps and online dating, etc., like you said, it's so instant, and you're literally just basing it upon what they look like, their appearance. So if their personality turns out to be awful, then you're gonna dump them, right?
Right, and when you first get to know somebody, we're all putting our best foot forward, right? So we really don't know somebody right away until we meet them and get to know their nuances and stuff like that. So it's much more complicated.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So let's say you're in a relationship relationship, you've been dating, and then you start to have some problems, okay? So what are some of the common problems you see with your clients?
Well, when you first start dating somebody, everything's all like perfect, and you're excited, and you have these butterflies, and you can't wait to see them. And all you're right, and there's a lot of truth to that. It's actually a whole neurochemistry that goes on in our brain when it comes to those feelings that we get. So you know, people say I have butterflies in my stomach, and I can't wait to see this person. So there's a lot of happy chemicals that are just being produced and secreted in our brain, and that makes us have those reactions and those responses, and it causes our brain to hyper focus only on that one person, almost like you're obsessed with them, right?
I know about that.
And this only can last for so long. It does not last more than like, I don't know, probably like 8 to 12 months. And then that's when people start to really kind of get to settle in, and then you get to know the person a little bit better. But those excitement feelings go away, and some people mistaken that for not being in love, or maybe they're bored. But that might not necessarily be true, because technically your brain can't handle all that overstimulation. Your body can't, because it would really drive you nuts, actually, to be that distracted all the time and that excitable all the time.
That's so interesting. You know, I actually read a quote. I want to attribute it to Buddha, but I could be wrong. And it said that when you meet someone and, you know, you feel those butterflies in your tummy, etc., that that's not the one for you. That when you meet someone who makes you feel calm and at home, that's the person you should be with.
That's a
Any
good
truth to
point.
that statement?
I can't respond to that. I can only speak to what I know about the chemistry of people. So,
Okay, so back to chemistry then. Let's talk about, thank you. Let's talk about when you fight with the person that you're in love with. If you get into an argument and say mean and nasty things to them, does that mean that you've fallen out of love with them?
that does not mean that at all. So we all have emotional triggers, right? So there are certain ways that we communicate in relationships that could by accident trigger the other person. Maybe they're passive aggressive and that's just how they deal with conflict.
Right.
And the other person who's on the recipient end of that, they get triggered by that because of some life experience or what it means to them. And so when that person gets aroused, like they get emotionally distressed, they're angry, they start to feel emotional about it, what's happening is their brain is kind of like putting them to this place of like fight or flight. And so what happens at that point is that people are unable to actually say the right thing and behave in the manner that they normally would. So you know how like sometimes we're like, oh, you're totally crazy and I know you're crazy, look how you're behaving, right? So they're actually behaving that way because their brain is secreting all of these stress hormones that are rendering a certain part of their brain totally vulnerable to not being able to see things clearly. So it's called a frontal cortex.
Wow.
And so that part of the brain has to do with our ability to control impulses and our ability to have good judgment and our ability to make good decisions.
So how
and
can you
so,
calm down that frontal cortex? So it's like, okay, stop,
Right?
stop, okay.
Right, because we find ourselves getting really crazed when we're in that moment and we're like, we can't even control ourselves down, right? So I usually tell my clients who come in with this problem, because a lot of people come in for this, because they're fighting like cats and dogs and they think that their relationship is totally over, or they think their spouse is totally insane.
Right.
So what I tell people to do is, there's a lot of research on anger, and with this research it suggests that people typically feel this kind of anger for about 30 minutes or so. Some people a little bit more, a little bit less. So when you start to feel yourself getting really like aroused, like your heart's starting to race and you're starting to kind of like feel the heartbeat in your ear, or you're starting to feel hot or anything like that,
Or
that's your
starting to feel
cue.
those cuss words coming out.
Yeah, right. That's really your cue to stop and to know that those hormones are starting to take over that part of your brain that control what you do, what you say. So that's a preventative action. So you got to notice what's happening to your body, and then you have to like have a word, like a code word. I tell people, whatever's meaningful in your relationship, nothing offensive.
Imagine the code word, the cuss word.
Right.
This is my way to get back at it.
Right. Or what about just time out?
Yeah.
Just like time out,
Right.
let's take a break,
Yes.
and then come back and argue.
Yes,
right?
and then you go your separate ways.
Okay.
And then you do a relaxation strategy or a coping strategy. You talk about it, you write, you do some breathing, whatever the case may be, listen to meditation. And then you have an understanding about when you're going to come back together to repair it.
Right.
Repairing means you actually have to talk about it.
Right.
So most people don't do the repair part. It's very essential for longevity of relationships.
So people always talk about talking, communication
Yeah.
is so important in a relationship, but how do you do it? And
Particularly when you're angry and don't want to speak to that person at that moment in time.
Right. Well, you shouldn't be speaking to that person if you're angry, because you're going to say things that you don't mean. You're going to behave in ways that are not going to make you look good, or have that person have a good memory of you when you get into a situation where you're mad.
Right.
You don't want people to start seeing you as this angry person and then they don't want to approach you for repair afterward. So you need to really prevent it. But when you come back, it's really important to actually talk about, you have to sit down and then you have to talk about how each of you felt about the situation. So you kind of want to like go over the situation, what happened, what got you to the place that got you upset, angry, disappointed, embarrassed, or whatever the case may be. And then you talk to each other about what it is that you need, and then you end from there on a good note. Now remember, everyone has different perceptions, so my reality may not be my partner's reality about what happened. And part of that has to do with the fact that those chemicals really get in our way of having a good memory with what went on because you're so mad.
Yeah, understandably so.
points.
Okay. I feel like I've learned a lot.
I know, right? I was like, okay, make sure we address the issue, how I
Taking
felt
notes
about it,
down.
how I'm going to repair it.
So let's
Yes.
talk about, because we did mention it's the lead up to Valentine's Day, and you know, certain people, maybe me, are looking for Valentine's night ideas. What sort of things can we get up to?
So it depends on what stage of your relationship you're in. So if you're in a stage of a relationship where you've been in the relationship for a while, you have longevity, maybe you have kids, or you've been married for a while, a lot of that excitement and exhilaration kind of gets worn off. And there's a lot of research to suggest that we really need this like novelty, excitement, or surprises to kind of keep that alive in the relationship. So what I would suggest for people that are in a long-term relationship that want to do something for Valentine's Day, do something different and out of the norm. Do something that's more novel and exciting that can generate a relation, like more of a meaningful connection between the both of you, that makes them know that you've thought about them and that you've done something outside of the box. You don't want to stay in the same zone that you do every day.
So no dinner and a movie type stuff. Just
No.
go beyond that.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We don't want to play the script of our own lives that we do every day. Get up, you know, whatever it is that we do, we want to change that up to create that excitement. We want to stimulate more happy chemicals in our brain to make them excited.
I like that. Good ideas.
I feel like you've taken more from this than me.
I know.
Shannon's married.
I gotta get ready.
So he's actually planning Valentine's Day.
Yes.
I'm single, unwilling to mingle. So hey,
There you go.
Valentine's Day for one.
We're gonna work it out. We're gonna work it out. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
Really
Dr.
appreciate
Danielle.
that. Now, if we have other, are you on social media? If we have other questions, we can hit you up.
Yes.
What's your Twitter,
Yes.
Instagram? Where can we find you?
It's at Dr. Forshee.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
All right. Happy almost Valentine's Day to you. Come right back. We have more treats for you.
We do. Welcome back to Arise Entertainment 360. Now, I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with Pat Houston, wouldn't you believe? And she is, of course, the sister-in-law and former manager of the late, great Whitney Houston. Take a look. Pat Houston, welcome to Arise 360. Pat, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
So happy to have you here with us. Now,
you.
we have to talk about your new book, A Better You. What inspired this book?
You know what? My daughter, my nieces, my goddaughters, you know, they're from the age range of 12 to 40, you know, and the young ones need mentoring and the older ones need life coaching. So with the experience of life, you know, I decided to just, you know, write for them.
Yeah. And what event or person would you say shaped you the most throughout your childhood? Because I noticed there was a lot of back reference to the people that supported you and you paying it forward, if you will.
You know what? I grew up an only girl, and I had 4 older brothers. You know, the lineage of women that was around me was incredible. Very spiritual, very strong, hardworking. You know, and there were civil groups, and there were women in those civic groups that really admired what I was doing and paid attention to what I was doing, and they gave to me. And I just felt, you know, to do the same thing, giving back is very important.
It is. Now, you mentioned people generally go through a lot of challenges, and then they write these inspirational stories. What sort of challenges would you say you faced?
You know what? You're faced with challenges every day. It's how you challenge yourself and deal with the challenges that you're faced with. And I learned that from my parents. I mean, really, come on. I'm a wife of almost 24 years, you know, and a mother of a 20-year-old. So, and then just life in itself. You know, you're faced with them, but you know, you learn, you know, all the things that you learned growing up from your parents and other folk that were important to you. It just kind of stays with you. You know, so I always say it's the power in the name Jesus. How about that?
Yes, I love that.
So that's the reason.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, speaking about charitable efforts, you've also started a charity called Teen Summit. Is that correct?
Teen Summit started about 11 years ago.
Okay.
And actually, Whitney and I started that. You know, you'll see her in the book, you know, at Teen Summit. And, you know, we were blessed that she was able to come, you know, months before she passed. You know, it was her first time coming, but she was a part of that. And, you know, we just looked at the lives of the young people that was around us, and we started focusing in on, especially me. You know, CeCe Winans, who's a really good friend of Whitney, she had a charity called Always Sisters. And when we weren't touring or doing anything major, each year CeCe would host her charity. We would go down, and I would bring a group of girls down, and as well as Bobby Christina, to this Always Sisters, and it was very powerful. So we just decided to keep it moving, and we did, and I'm very happy that we did.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Can you share with me one of the, maybe an anecdotal story about one of these Teen Summit meetings?
You know what, I'll tell about the time that Tyler Perry came.
Oh, wow.
You know, each year we host an event in October in Shelby, North Carolina. That is where I'm from. You know, and I do it there because I want the young girls to know that you can always think outside of the box until there is no box. And I'm a neighborhood kid, a community kid that did think outside of the box, and then to move on with my life.
Transcended the box.
Yeah, yes. You know, and to have people like the likes of Tyler Perry or Deborah Chase Martin, and each year is powerful, and we did it for 10 years, and that's where A Better You came in at. This was one of our titles for the platform.
And I love the title.
Yeah, A Better You, you know, helping one to become a better self, you know, and you know, all of the summits, all of the topics and everything were important. You know, so there's not just one. You know, it was all of them, you know.
Of course. Now, you are a very busy lady. So you mentioned touring with Whitney and all these other amazing things that you've done. How do you find the time to give back? Because you received the Lifetime Achievement Award from President Barack Obama. How do you find the time?
You know what? If it's important to you and if it's a passion, you make the time. And time is really all that we have. It's how you use it. You know, we can't be too busy for our youth, and a lot of times we are. A child should never have to ask, where are you? And that was one of our subjects. You know what I'm saying? And that came from Bobby Christina. A child should never, you know, have to feel, you know, like there's a suffering silently, you know. So you find the time, and the balance is there, and you can do it. You can't be too busy shopping. You can't be too busy going to church. You can't be too busy working. You can't be too busy just hanging out. There are young people out there, and we are their solution, and we have to act like it. So when it comes to them, it's the time is there. It's yours. And with that 20-year-old daughter that I have that's in college right now, I'm still on it, you know. I'm still present. So you find the time and the balance. You just have to do it if it's your passion, and this is my passion, and that's why I'm here.
Speaking of passions, tell me about one of your other passions, Marion P. Candles.
Wow. Marion P., that's me.
Yes.
You know, a given name, Marion Patricia Watson, you know, Houston now. You know, Whitney was the only person that would ever call me Marion P. And she would always say, you know, when I look at you, it's all about gratitude. It's all about peace. It's all about kindness. It's all about love. She said, you should do something. I said, you can do it. She said, no, it would not be the same. She said, so we should do candles. And we came up with Marion P., inspired by Whitney Houston.
Oh.
And, you know, we traveled to the Holy Land a few times. Well, I did. She only once. And we named the candles from names of the Holy Land: Tiberias, Jericho, Galilee, Jordana. So they're candles of peace. And I call them candles of peace because growing up, I had an auntie, Aunt Essie, that used to light a lantern at night You know, when I was visiting her, she would light a lantern and she would read scripture at night with that lantern. And that lantern would give you the illusion that the room was candle lit.
Yes.
So that was the inspiring part as far as the candles were concerned. But Whitney was the person that pushed the idea. So inspired by Whitney Houston, and that's where the candle came from.
Again, another pillar of support or strength in your life. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
What would you say your favorite scent from the line is?
My favorite scent is Tiberius, ruby red grapefruit. Whitney's favorite scent was Noel. You know, and we did that because of her Christmas album, One Wish. She loved recording that album, and we were working with the one producer that she absolutely loved, Gordon Chambers, who produced the title song, One Wish. And she always talked about Noel, you know, first Noel, and that was one of her favorite songs. So we named that candle Noel, and that was her favorite.
I love that. Oh, what a great story. So what is next for Marion P? You dominated the world of books, you dominated the world of candles. What's next?
You know what? It's a new chapter. You know, with our daughter, you know, being in school, you know, being married is a pill.
25 years. I mean, you're doing very well, is it?
Yeah, and you know, I'm like a caregiver, and I have always been, you know, helping others help themselves.
Right.
And now it's about me. You know, it's about me. So my next chapter I'm going to hit all the bucket lists that I've missed.
What's the top 5 on your bucket list?
The top 5, taking that ride on that the Golden Train around the Canadian Rockies.
Ooh.
My mother is 85, will be 86. Sissy is 84 and will be 85. I'm the only girl now that Whitney's gone with, because we were surrounded by all men. She had 2 older brothers, I had 4, and we used to have this joke, you know, about being the youngest ones, but we were the leaders.
Oh, yes.
Don't let them hear that. But you know, it's about taking care of the moms, you know, as they get older. Yeah. You never think that it's going to be you to have to do that.
Of course.
But it's a feeling of gratitude and thankfulness to be able to do it for both of them.
Of course.
And they both depend on you, from Sissy and my mom. So that bucket list requires more time with them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Family is very important to you, as it should be.
No, it is. And you know, you have, and also with Whitney's legacy and dealing with the fans, I want the fans to have what they want. You know, Whitney's fans are dynamic. You know, and I really didn't get to know a lot of them when she was here, but for the past 6 years almost, I've really gotten to know quite a few of them personally, and they're incredible. So she has wonderful fans. So I plan to do, you know, some great projects with her legacy, you know, to make them happy, because they deserve to be.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're
Pat.
quite welcome.
Before you leave, you do have to tell us where we can purchase this amazing book.
Well, the book can be purchased on Kindle on Amazon.
Right.
And also you can go to marionpbooks.com and purchase the book, and I will sign the book. You know, of course. You know, so I have random book signings sometimes, you know, in different places, and you just have to go to the website to find that out, but it's marionpbooks.com.
Love that. And before you go, again, the very last question, I do have to ask you about Whitney Houston's latest CD.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
You know what? That CD was extremely important, because when the very first song, you hear her speak, and she's speaking, and it's almost like she's speaking to you. But it was really the 25th anniversary of The Bodyguard. You know, last year was the 25th anniversary of The Bodyguard, and it was the biggest selling album ever.
Yes.
And she was such an iconic figure, and still, you know, that album was important because a lot of the live music and that's on this particular CD were from performances that we just absolutely loved, and the fans. You know, and they had a lot to do with it. You know, they would write in, you know, to let you know, which performance they wanted to hear, and we did it. You know,
so you reissued the CD, basically.
We did.
That's amazing.
We did. It was all about The Bodyguard. You know, from live music to remixes, and from the original soundtrack.
phenomenal stuff. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for joining me,
Quite
Pat. It's
welcome.
been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.
We'll be right back with more Arise360.
Welcome back to Arise360. Now, from President Trump's State of the Union address to Blue Ivy's Grammy moment, this week's headlines have, well, pretty much been say what type week.
And here to break down everything viral are entertainment experts Jessica White in the No Entertainment and Angela Vaughn of Angela Vaughn. Welcome to Arise360.
Hey, I'm excited.
So we have to break it down because, like
Right.
Shannon said, there were so many say what now moments. I mean,
what?
we literally, that's all we said this week. Say what?
Yes, exactly.
So where are we starting from?
Well, just breaking news is Aisha Curry just announced that she's pregnant for the 3rd time.
Whoa!
Okay,
But they do have some cute kids, though.
Yes, yes,
Can I just
beautiful
say, I
kids.
mean, I saw the picture on Instagram and the caption was, oh, I don't know how this happened again. And I was like, well, I do. Do you need me to tell you? Like, it's the birds and the bees.
Right.
We all know how it happened. What are you saying?
Exactly. And that's, I think, one of the things when you have kids and you continue to have children and you want to have children, it's like, all right, how many children are you going to have? And they may be building their own Fave Five. They
Right.
might. They
Get their own
might
basketball
have-
team, right?
Exactly.
When you have a lot of money, it doesn't matter.
Right?
You can just drop them. Just drop them.
Exactly. You
Bam,
have as
another
many
like
kids as you
eggs.
want.
You get a baby. You get a baby. You get a baby.
Oh, God, babies! I love
Funny.
it. Okay, so one of my favorite moments that happened this week, indubitably, has to be Blue Ivy at the Grammys.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yes,
she was
yes.
telling Mama and Pop to stop clapping for the commoners.
Exactly.
We don't clap for the commoners, Mother, they clap for
Exactly.
us.
And
Talk to me about that moment.
Well, I think with Blue Ivy, and we can even go back to Riley. When Riley was up there with her father, and it was a thing, these kids command your attention.
Absolutely.
So Blue Ivy telling them to shh, and we just so happen to catch it on camera. It's like, who you talking to?
Right.
They kind of gave her that little moment, like, and Beyonce kept that stone face just like the elevator shot. Like,
Right.
okay, you guys.
Yes. You know, I'm so happy you
That's
noticed
funny.
that as well because there were so many moments during the Grammys where Beyonce gave her that
Absolutely.
black mother look.
Absolutely.
Like, when I get home,
Absolutely.
I'm going to deal with you, bro. There was
You don't have
so
to say any words, right?
Not
Just all
a
in
word.
the-
She was
all
like,
right
not
here.
and you
word.
could see it because she was like,
Exactly.
with that fake smile.
My favorite part during the Grammys is when Beyonce had the sippy cup and the snacks on
The
front
movie
row.
theater vibe.
She was
Yes.
like, my child is about to get on my nerves, Lord. Let me just feed her. I'm just going
I
to feed
love
her.
that. You
And
got
Kim
to.
Kardashian should take some notes. That's the same
Absolutely.
thing we do in Northwest.
Absolutely.
She'll cut up anywhere she goes.
Are we
Anywhere.
saying that Northwest is
Anywhere.
an unruly child?
I won't say she's unruly. I'll just say that she, she hasn't been around grandma.
Because
grandma
when your
switched.
grandma is Kris Jenner.
Snatch
I
you up.
mean,
She needs to be in Chicago
Oh,
Lady,
and get her
ladies.
all the way together.
Oh, get it together. Okay. Well, one person, some people are saying needs to get it together. I'm giving him props. It's Quincy Jones, who
Yes.
has 22 girlfriends because he's upfront about it. That's one thing to be a player and just act like you with one girl and you really with 22. He's upfront.
That's
I'm a
true.
player. I got 22 girlfriends around the world.
Would you like to be number 23?
22
And everyone would be like, me, I would.
Right.
He got him from 22 to 42.
Right.
And he said he just says that age so his daughters won't be upset on how young they are.
Oh,
So they might be a little bit younger than the two daughters.
Ooh, and how old are his daughters?
I think Kadaida should be like mid-30s, early 40s, because she used to date Tupac. And then, of course, Rashida.
Yes.
Yeah,
Of
they're
course,
about,
yes.
mid-30s, early
So
40s.
he just puts that upper cap there
Absolutely.
so they don't get angry, but it's really more
Absolutely.
towards the
Whoa.
Absolutely.
But you gotta understand with Quincy Jones, who is really gonna say I'm gonna be your girlfriend unless you're Hugh Hefner? Quincy, what are you putting out here with all this Me Too's and these hashtags? You should take notes from Bill Cosby
But Me
and
Too
Russell
is,
Simmons.
that's
you
they're
shouldn't announce
fighting
this.
when it's rape, when it's not consensual.
Right.
At the point where Quincy says,
These are my girlfriends.
hey,
Yeah.
But they all know about each other.
That's my
Of
girlfriend,
course
that's my
they
girlfriend,
know.
would
Do
you
you
like to
really
swing?
know about it?
Sister-wives.
Absolutely.
Look, he should,
Absolutely.
If he's smart and all people in the industry needs to make sure people sign an NDA, say I am in this relationship by my own will, because you never know what somebody could try to say later on.
Very
But if he's not
true.
exclusive, he really, he can just tell them, This
like,
is what it is.
bye, Felicia.
And
Right.
who's going to say you're not going to hang out with Quincy?
And I was going to say, I think we should consider what's considered girlfriends. Am I hanging out with you? Am I just a jump off? Am I your date? Am I a renegade? What am I really?
You're like
date.
That's
good
why they
point.
don't all live in the same place that he lives, because he has countries.
So you're saying they could just be friends, and he calls them girlfriends?
Correct, because he's 90. He's old.
Hey, this Viagra now.
And he said he has it. He says he has the technology to get them together. He doesn't want anybody
I
his age.
need us to move away from this.
He said, no.
Oh, no. Okay. Now on to Martin.
Yes.
That was one of my favorite moments of this week.
Yes.
If it happens, which I think it is.
It
because
is.
Martin Lawrence actually just put a picture on Instagram today of him and his co-star.
Yes.
Tisha Campbell Martin and Tashina Arnold, they all went out to lunch. Now, mind you, we did have a clip from Tisha. We want to roll to that real quick, and then we can come back.
Honored to be Gina all these years, and it's surprising that people still love those characters so much. So I can't tell you guys anything.
Sounds like a yes to me.
Especially after all that, and then the Instagram post.
So it's some smoke, there's some fire.
But what are they going to do without Tommy? I know they say he ain't never had a job, but is he always going to be just gone?
No, I think they should address it and say he passed away and have his picture eternally hanging in there. What did they say?
Okay.
You can act like he
You gotta understand, Martin
It's not like
was
he coming back
pivotal
for a
to the
special.
90s.
Exactly.
And these characters were pivotal to us, just like in Living Color. So to have Martin come back, we have to say something about all of the characters.
Absolutely.
But if Tommy ain't got no job, then Tommy ain't alive.
Right. Tommy ain't got no job.
But I think with the reboot, I think that they're going to have to finagle it. Like, I think it should be something like Martin becoming a big-time radio host, and him and Gina are divorced, and she's coming to get a
Wait, why you gotta divorce him though?
Because you just
Black love, hashtag it.
But you know, years go on, and you get a big head, and you don't think so.
You know what's anything? They owe us a final season. The last season, Gina was already in LA. We already had the talk of alleged inappropriate behavior on set. So you already took that away from us. So coming back, they need to be in love and they need to have worked it out. So we're being rude.
Let's switch gears slightly because we are running out of time, and I do need us to touch on the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Coming up this weekend.
This Sunday.
Now, I know I don't really, well, I didn't understand what a Super Bowl was, but now I do. And these commercials are fire, literally. Let us take a look at Mr. Game of Thrones and Mr. Morgan Freeman singing along to Missy Elliott for Doritos.
Yes.
Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop. Cause you know I gotta win every day. She didn't really wanna pop me. Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come in and I gotta set it, then I gotta go and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing and then I think it be doing cause it doesn't matter cause I'm gonna did it.
Busta Rhymes and Doritos and Mountain Dew. So
tell me about the commercial, because you were saying something whilst we were watching it about hip hop coming back into the mainstream.
Hip hop and mainstream have now collaborated, and we see it all the time. Sometimes we have to wait to the actual halftime show, but now we can see it in the commercial. It's going to make me go out. I'm like, for Busta Rhymes fans and all the New Yorkers, they're going to get their Doritos, they're going to get their Mountain Dew. We had Missy Elliott, who's hot right now.
Exactly. So, Morgan Freeman, we didn't show that part, but you had Morgan Freeman come out like God. I really do believe that. He plays God in every single movie. This man is God. I'm telling you. When it comes out, remember I told you.
Okay, yes.
But you have Morgan Freeman coming out, rapping along to Missy Elliott. I was like, what?
That was amazing.
Buying Doritos.
You don't even know why, but there he is. He's going to make you buy him. That's gonna happen.
And then everybody's
I don't care what he's selling. I'll buy it.
That's it.
And then everybody's going to be into Busta Rhymes because last time with Super Bowl, nobody knew who Missy Elliott was. And then all of a sudden everyone's going to be like, oh my God, he's a new artist. But Busta Rhymes has been around forever. This is a great
And we are going to be back next week because we are out of time.
So we're going to watch the Super Bowl this weekend, watch all the commercials, root for your team. And Eagles. I'm going with the Eagles.
You going with the Eagles? I'm going with the Eagles too.
I'm going with the boys in blue.
Patriots.
Or the green.
I'm going for Justin Timberlake.
And don't forget to join us next week. We have much more Arise360 right here for you. We'll see you then.